Welcome to Auntie Lou's Hour. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Susan Hunter.
Oh, the last time someone called me that name was my mother many, many years ago. Oh my goodness.
I
God
thought so.
bless
No
her
one
soul.
calls you Susan. It's Sue Hunter.
It's Sue. Yes, it is. Thank you.
Oh, and you're a mover and a shaker in the
I try,
HIV world, aren't you?
well, I try to be, but if I think back nearly 19 years, would I have ever dreamed to be doing what I'm doing now? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So I sometimes have to take a breath myself, Louise, and thinking, what the heck are you doing, Sue? But that's life, isn't it? You don't know what knocks at the door. You don't know who and whatever knocks at your front door. And I'm an example of that.
Yeah. So you've been living with HIV for quite a long time now, haven't you, Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nearly 19 years. And if I go back 19 years, pre-diagnosis, God, I've always lived my best life. I just recently got divorced, so I was sort of going through a divorce, and it was like a sort of a new beginning. I had my daughter, and she was quite young, and I started to live again, and of course, I met someone else. I wasn't planning to. Things happen. I've always been searching for that aspect of love. I think we all are as human beings. And I
Say
found
it
this
as it is, girl.
I know, and I'm not one to hang around. Life is too short, and that was before my diagnosis. I've always felt that life is too short. You've got to grab everything that comes along. You've got to, because we only get this one life, as we understand and know. And I met this guy, and he seemed lovely and kind, and was sort of gone through a very similar experience to what I'd gone through, a divorce, and quite sort of a bit messy and what have you. So we came together in very similar circumstances, and we really started to get on, and progressed, and my divorce went through, and after 6 months of knowing each other, he moved. What did I move in with him? Oh, we moved in together. Okay. And it was against everyone's advice and what have you. But I've always been that person that goes with my gut. If it feels right, I'm going to do it. We were together another 6 months, and I've decided maybe I've moved a little bit hasty. And so I moved out, and we kept, friends and what have you, Louise. And a few months after, I got that knock at the door. I explained that, and you don't know what knocks at your door. And I did get that knock at the door, which completely changed my life, Louise. He stood there, he came in, he said, I just need to tell you, Sue, I've just been diagnosed. And the shock waves literally pinned me to the wall, because I'm a girl of I remember the beginning of the AIDS crisis, Louise. I remember the television adverts. I can feel it now. I'm in the room, and I remember my mother saying, shouting out, "Oh, there's no such thing as gay people, and that's not going to happen in this house." And I still remember her saying that. So when he told me that he was diagnosed, and he advised me, he wanted me to go for that check, I'm thinking, hang on, he's got the wrong person. He's not. And anyway, as it found out, obviously I went along quite scared, and I was petrified, Louise, because I was as it was seen to be, a white heterosexual person, not supposed to be in a risk group. That's what that's what people were telling me. Okay. And obviously when I got that diagnosis, it literally crushed my world for quite a long time. So, but the unfortunate thing, Louise, what I also had to deal with was, after my diagnosis, he died. He passed away. My ex-partner, and he was a white heterosexual man, not to be seen back then in a risk group. That's what happened, and that was quite traumatic, because he was only a young guy. When we say 43, that is young. No, your life. So I had to first of all deal with his death, and the shock, but also my own diagnosis.
It's a lot.
That was right at the beginning, which sort of paved the way to, I suppose, what I'm doing now and the reasons why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I hope that makes a bit of sense.
It's because I think, like we're of a similar age, so if I don't mind me saying, right? And I think that, your sex life is really private. We didn't grow up in the days of the internet, where, you sits out for the boys on social media. We weren't from that. Well, we were from, you keep things private,
You certainly don't talk about sex, even
about
at
sex.
school.
Yeah.
You just don't,
Yeah. And I think we came from that era that sex and women is just, it just doesn't happen. But to men, they can go and sow their wild oats,
Yeah.
So there was a kind of misogynistic framework around what women should be and how they should behave,
Exactly.
and how men can be and how men can behave.
Yeah.
So so with that in mind, I think about like early 80s, the amount of women that must have been living with HIV and then went on to have a HIV related death that we never knew about.
I know. We didn't, we would get those messages we're getting told back in the day. There were young gay men. That's what we were getting told. That's what the TV told us,
Yeah, that's correct.
And
yeah.
That's what we were getting told, and the newspaper headlines.
Because older people didn't have sex. So it wasn't old gay white men, because they don't have sex. It's just young white gay men.
That's it. Yeah. They were the cause. They were the trouble. They were the instigators, and horrendous stigma, as we know, was formed back then. Horrendous. So, and it was a shock, I mean, gosh, I remember, I remember not even getting told about periods at home. I think I found out from my sister, and then my mom said, she was giving me water bottles, So I come from that, two sisters, two brothers, a large family that, when it came to that sex thing, my parents didn't tell me about it. I sort of found out by maybe an older a sibling or information from, well, it wasn't the internet obviously back then, and we sort of paced ourselves through. And it was really difficult, and I suppose also a woman, because obviously I got brought up in the era that it was the man's responsibility to, look after protection and to be that. And that's the generation I got brought up in, Louise.
Yeah. So because men take responsibility. They're the ones in charge. So they take charge of sex and everything else, and condom, and they carry it. And they.
Yeah, I know. And I suppose that if I think about it, and I suppose that may relate to, why, I often think, Louise, what brought me to my diagnosis. I'd been in a marriage. I'd had relationships before. I left this one, and I'm thinking I'm premenopausal. I mean, when I think about it, I feel a bit ridiculous, but hey ho.
Yeah.
I think about, I was premenopausal at the time. I'd started this new sexual relationship. Why didn't I go for a full sexual health check? I knew I wasn't going to get pregnant. I knew I wasn't going to get pregnant because I was premenopausal. So, I didn't have that information, and I didn't seek that information. And why was that? I often question myself about that. I've stopped beating myself up about it, but I often question myself, Sue, why didn't you look after your sexual health? Those are questions I can't answer, whether it's the lifestyle.
Because look at this, right? So we're both different people. Yeah. We've had different upbringings. We look different. We've had different experiences. Why is it? Okay, one of the things that we do have in common is that we were brought up, like in the UK, right?
Yeah.
Why? And we're both women, and we're both living with HIV. What is it? I also did not think about my sexual health in that way. But with children, I wanted to teach them about using a condom and not getting a girl pregnant. I did teach them about that. Why did I not think about that for me?
I don't know. Yeah, I really get that, because obviously when my daughter was born, I was very conscious. I wanted to give her every piece of information, even let her be brought up as a Catholic, because I thought that was what, my husband's side wanted. So I wanted to just do everything, in her interest, and look after her.
Yeah.
And I think we change as people. I think when we have our children, I believe, and I go from my own experience, I wanted to protect her. And hey, this is the reasons, one of the ways I tried to protect her in my early diagnosis. I hid my diagnosis, my living with HIV, for over 6 years. That nearly killed me, Louise.
What's that like? I'm going to ask you that. Like, when you first found, you've just painted a brilliant picture. I can just imagine what that was like for you, finding out you got HIV.
Yeah.
And what was your next few weeks, few months, few years like, not telling anyone?
Well, my thought was, and in fact, my best friend said to me, my best friend Suzanne, known her 55 years nearly, and she said to me, Sue, you need to get yourself a credit card. I mean, I've never had a credit card before, because just in case you need money and you're not able to get credit, and that's the first bit of advice. My best friend, I mean, so I got this credit card. I never used it, but it was that fear. That's, who do I tell? And whoever I tell, what is their reaction going to be? I'm a woman. I shouldn't have this. This is what I wasn't told. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of scary. My family said to me, why have you got this? Who has done this? Who has done this to you? Who has done this to you? And I said, well, let me remind you, this person you say that has done this to me has lost his life from someone given, passing on HIV to him. So let's not be too judgmental. But it was very scary in the early days. And I thought to myself, I need to get a grip on what I've been diagnosed. I've got this for life. I need to learn about. I thought I was going to die, first of all. I'd seen Freddie Mercury. I'd seen I'd seen what was going on. Death was imminent. That's what I thought. Obviously, I got some fantastic help and support, but so I thought, well, I need to understand, and what I'm living with, before I even tell the closest people to me. And I'm talking about my daughter, who was only 8. She was still dealing with the divorce and everything, and she had and still has a fantastic relationship with her father. So I had lots of things to, and that comes back to looking after people before you look after yourself. So I can't tell her. There's no way I can, scare this gorgeous little mite. She's already going through enough. I cannot. And I was in tears, and one night she caught me. I take my pills on 10 o'clock at night, and one day she was having a bad dream, and she came down and she seen me take my tablet. She said, oh mummy, what are you doing? Do you have a headache? And I nearly, oh, do you have a headache, mummy? Is that why you're taking the tablet? And I says, oh no. We'd already started talking. She was about 10 then. We'd already started talking about periods and how women change. So she was quite sort of up on that. And I said, well, we were talking about periods the other time. Well, when a lady gets to a certain age, she goes through something called the menopause. And sometimes she needs to help go through that, is take medication. And I sort of said, oh, those are those medications. Oh, all right. And she went back up to bed. And there was many occasions where I lied barefaced to my and the pain, you can't.
Oh, Sue, man.
You live with that. You go on. You think, oh my God, have I done an injustice where she was younger? Lying to her, but I was only trying to protect her, Louise, in the best way I thought that I could. And
it's hard enough for young girls to navigate themselves, their bodies, sex, relationships. And then before they even start that navigation of boyfriends, mum's got to tell them they've got an STD. I know how that feels, because I've got 3 of them, and I just couldn't find it really hard to tell them.
And it's the shame, and it's the feeling that you're letting them down. I often think back, did I let her down? Even now after all the years, even though everything's out in the open and we've still got a fantastic relationship, I feel as though I let her down in some way and I'm paying the price. I still think that. I don't talk about it often, but I still feel I'm paying the price for my misgivings many years ago, but
do you know what? I do think about this a lot now, Sue. This thing about things that we do wrong and things that we do right. And as a
yeah,
society, we want to do everything right, don't we? We want
yeah,
the right
yeah,
job, the right
yeah,
this, the right that. Everything's got to be right.
yeah,
And everything's got to be good. But we never really talk about the other side, which is we can call them mistakes or we can call them life lessons. We can call it depression and anxiety, or we can call it we're feeling different.
yeah,
We all want to just push away anything that doesn't feel perfect and nice and loving. And you're just a human being, just trying to get through your life. And there was a situation that occurred. You've got HIV. It's not like diabetes where you stuffed your face with lots of sugar. I'm exaggerating. Apologies to those that have got diabetes for other reasons.
yeah,
You had sex. You had sex. Hands up. Anyone that's ever had sex, right? You had sex, right? And that happened. And I kind of think to myself, it's just something that happens. And I think I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know if it's a woman thing. It's like we try to be this perfect role model for our children, have the job, be a good mum, which means not having sex as well,
yeah, exactly, because and that's that some of those things feel and still do, and I've always been and I don't mind saying it, and being very proud of it, Louise, even now, a happy sexual being, and women should
Yes,
feel and women should be able to feel, even
yeah,
in their 60s. I mean, I'm 65 now and I still feel as though there is life in the sexual world for me, and I'll never give up that. Do you know what I mean?
that's
um
fantastic to hear.
do you know what I mean? So, and I want to pass on that great information to my daughter, that whatever happens in your life, you can get
Yeah,
past it, you can go on and
yeah.
think, and we've gone through some pretty sort of
Mm,
not so great things in the years after my diagnosis, and when I told her, and and I remember her coming home from school one day, Louise, and she was crying, and she said, mummy, you've got to do something. And I couldn't calm her down. And I said, what is wrong? Well, you've got to come to our school, because by then she knew about my diagnosis. She knew about the great work I do at the Terence Higgins Trust, and and going to schools and all that sort of thing. You've got to come and do one of your sessions and tell them it's not to do with AIDS and it's not to do with monkeys. She'd overheard people laughing and joking in the recreation room, and her heart was breaking. And she said, I wanted to shout at them, mummy. I wanted to shout at them. You don't know what you're talking about. Mummy's living at home. I mean, I'm getting choked up now thinking about it.
true. Yeah,
And I,
yeah.
and I made a decision then, very early on, that I would try and make a difference. I would, and what was so great, that the positive thing that happened because of that, she actually left school. She was 15 and she was getting ready to leave school. We actually got into her school, and it's one of the schools we go in on a yearly basis. So I've carried on that legacy because of her, that from that time she came home crying and asking me and begging me to do something about it. And I suppose that's where my passion is, with young people getting the information, Louise. It
Yeah.
stems back right in the early days, what I went through with my own daughter. And
Can I ask you? I mean, that's just you got me going, because So tell me about, like, how did you get through it all? When did things start to change? What was the straw that broke the camel's back, where you started to, like,
yeah,
what shifted from being silent for 6 years to kind of starting to shift?
yeah. Okay. I mean, obviously, thing that happened with my daughter, I felt as though, because I've always been a fairly strong-willed person. I've always, in my career before my career now at the Terence Higgins Trust, I worked, in management, retail. Fashion was my joy, my pleasure, and I never thought anything would ever touch that. And of course, after my diagnosis, I closed the door on that, and I thought, well, whatever happens now happens. And then obviously I found the charity, the Terence Higgins Trust, and And that really opened the doors on my ability to what I could do from now on. I knew I was a fairly strong person, but I'm still a human being at the end of the day. And I still, you know, let me just say to anyone, not anyone listening, you know, I'm still flesh and blood, and I still feel and get depressed and all of that sort of things. But the charity helped me to realize, it made me realize that I had a voice and I could use it. I could use my voice. And as soon as I got the taste for that, that I knew I had a voice and I could channel it in a way to make people listen. And that just went from strength and from strength. And I realized I could do something. I could do something really special, not just for me, not just for my family, which is important, but to anyone else. To say, here is what HIV now looks like. It's not what people think or what people used to think about. And I think that, I mean, hey, I never attended any support groups within my diagnosis. I mean, people get quite shocked at them. I mean, I did have counselling for a year, and that helped. That helped me pave the way for, you know, for my living with HIV. So I did have that, and that was amazing. But I never really attended any support groups. I felt as I didn't fit in, because you know, the support groups I was looking at were for the gorgeous, fantastic gay community. I still feel as I didn't fit in, even though you know, we're all living with the same thing at that early years, and I couldn't really find that support. But what I did find in the work that I started volunteering first of all. I found my inner support with other positive people living with HIV. That's how I found working with people living with HIV. I found my support in that. I also found my support in the work that I was doing when I do talks and sessions on HIV awareness. That's how I found my inner support on how, you know, I could make a difference to me, which made me feel better, which made me but hey, let's not get me wrong when I'm saying that. I'm not totally invisible. You know, I have moments. I have moments of reflection, Louise, like everyone else does. I reflect back and think, if only I didn't do that. If only I didn't do this. And I beat myself up about it. And I think it's okay to sort of get back in that. Go in that and then have it, you know, because, you know, and the tears come and think, oh, you know, what have I done with my life? Things could have been different. And then I very quickly come out of it. Because I have to, and because I need to. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And so I wanted to ask you about dating. I mean, you know, why must that have been for you? Your ups, your downs. Did you try to date anyone? Why?
No, I did. And this, I know. I mean, people couldn't believe me. In the first year of my diagnosis, actually, it was after a year. I joined a HIV dating site. I know.
Me too.
I thought, well, let's what is out there? I mean, I'm probably the only heterosexual person. And you know what? I was so shocked because I seen other heterosexual guys and women out there. And I found love and companionship. And I thought, okay. And my brain and my mind started opening. Well, hang on, Sue. You're my own misconception were getting blasted. And I had a few dates and I had a relation. And you know what? I met my second husband on one of those sites, actually. And we were married for about 8 or so years. And obviously that fell through. And we were still stayed friends. And I've had relationships as well. And I mean, I've had the odd person that I'd met that on getting to know that person. And after a while, I thought, well, what have I got to lose in telling this guy I'm talking about? I still call it. I know people talk about, you know, having the conversation, but for me, I feel as though I was disclosing something. I know an awful lot of people don't think of it as disclosing when you disclose your status, but for me, I have to tell my truth on how I feel about it. And I sat down with this guy, and I you know, and I said, what have I got to lose? And I told him I'm living with HIV. I remember showing him my tablets, and he was kind of, you know, quite an intelligent guy. And I thought, well, you know, what have I got to lose? And he turned around to me and said to me, Louise, oh, he says, I don't know. Ooh, he said, I value my life too much to have any relationship with you. Just and that shut me. That shut me for a while. Shut the family. And after I'd sort of gone into that mode of feeling self-rejected and literally being worthless, self-worth, you know, all of that. I thought to myself, you know, soon I said to myself, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because this person maybe not have the information that I have, maybe grew up, well, he was older than me. And so, okay. But on that, I've had really good relationships with people that are not living with HIV. I've gone on to have really nice relationships, and they've ended for one reason or another. So, and obviously I met my third husband. I know it goes on. I know. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor is my icon. I didn't get to Liz's state, but I mean, she's one of my icons. But third husband, unfortunately, that was. I've never talked about this before, but I will do, because it's your show, Louise. I was only with him a year, and we got married very quickly in St. Lucia, and I went through it was sort of slightly physical and mental abuse type of relationship, and I had to leave very quickly. And I don't really speak about that, and that took me, and still does, you know. And he was also living with HIV, and I believe that he couldn't, as a white heterosexual man, and I say that for a reason, he hid his status. He never, you know, and I believe he had his own mental health problems. I tried to help him, but I wasn't helping myself. I was trying to help. That comes from trying to look after someone else and not looking at yourself, and it comes back to that, doesn't it? And you know, and this went on for years afterwards, you know, and I eventually divorced him just over a year ago, and it went on for a long time. And I thought to myself, right, come on, let's get a grip. And that's all about, I don't know whether it was, is this what I'm now left to contend with, you know, because you get fed up of looking, you get fed up of searching. But you know what, I'm happy. You know, I've had other relationships. And my family goes, why don't you just sit up and drink your coffee and put your slippers on? And I says, as long as I'm still moving, as long as I'm still breathing, and working and active, and I will still carry on. I mean, you know, you mentioned what do I do to, you know, to be the person I'm at. I mean, I still work out. I spin 4 times a week. That gives me the adrenaline to keep going. If I can think, but I love it, you know. So I think it's a never-ending journey, to be quite honest, Louise. It's a never-ending journey. Something's always changing and happening, but I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever happens next.
Do you know what? You radiate love. You love love. You love to be in love. You're a sucker for love, you know.
I know. It's always been my downfall.
Yeah. And there's something about loving yourself?
Exactly.
Loving yourself and putting yourself first, because I think as women, we do have a tendency, we are nurturing. You know, a lot of women are very nurturing, and you want to give, and you want to kind of, you know, give your love to a man. And sometimes we forget about what our needs are and what we need, and it, you know, that takes time, I think.
Absolutely. But you know, that's exactly what I'm going to do now. That is going to be my new relationship. The more loving and of myself, and appreciating, you know, what is around me, things that I know I can control. You know, in the past there was many things I wasn't able to control because of circumstances or what was going on at the time. But you know, I have a beautiful, beautiful grandson. And
Oh,
now this is the thing. I've never ever been religious, but I've always believed things happen for a reason. And I honestly think,
yeah.
and I know this, I'm speaking off copy, and my daughter think I'm crazy, but I honestly think, oh, I'm getting filled up thinking about it, but I honestly think, I honestly think my grandson was sent to me for a reason, Louise. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. But you know what? Because he has changed my life on
Yeah.
I mean, I see his face, he's running, he's shouting nanny. And I want to do
Mm.
more, even as much as I can at the moment, to make sure his generation doesn't have
Yeah.
to go through what
Mm.
we have gone and others have gone
Yeah.
before us. And I want to make sure I can do what I can to bring change for that. So that has given me an extra sort of new force of life to,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it just brings it to home that your loved ones, your friends, your family, the people that care about you are the most important things and worth worrying about, you know?
Yeah, so wow, your experiences. I mean, I'm so glad, that you're doing what you do. You
Yeah.
know, you're a woman, a mature woman, you're living with HIV, you've got a
Mm-hmm.
grandson, you've got an older daughter, you've
Yeah.
been married a few times, you've had some
Yeah.
experiences, and you spin, and you've got loads of energy, and you're really radiant. Uh, you're amazing. I really do.
Oh,
And I'm so glad that you're part of this HIV universe. And I'm so glad that you're
yeah.
visible. Well
Yeah.
done to you. And thank you, to people like you, so standing up so you can be seen, so that other people can see themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
as you know, uh, sometimes putting yourself first and giving
Yeah.
yourself the nourishment and the love and the time that you give to others is
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah, and we sometimes forget to do that, don't we? And we get sort
Yeah,
of
we do.
carried away with maybe what we're doing for others, and maybe
Yeah,
taking that breath and say, "Hang on a minute, step back." And I'm starting to do that more. Believe it or not, my
yeah,
family don't believe it, but I am starting to do that more, and I hopefully will continue to do even more. But no, I mean, I feel lucky. I feel fortunate. I feel lucky. I'm in a country that I don't have to pay for my medication. HIV is accepted more than if you compare it to other countries, and this, okay, we've still got loads of stuff to do, haven't we, Lou, as a HIV
yeah,
community and
yeah,
organisation, but I feel incredibly privileged of the healthcare, that
yeah,
are struggling healthcare. And I feel great that I'm alive and I'm fit and well, living with HIV,
yeah,
which I never
yeah,
ever dreamed that would ever, you know, happen.
yeah.
So, mm,
So on that note, so if there's someone listening to this podcast, a little
yeah,
girl, young girl or guy, who's feeling quite, sad, they've just got a sexually transmitted infection of some sort,
mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm,
they're just feeling rejected, they're feeling alone, they're
mm-hmm,
feeling scared, they're feeling that no one understands them and there's nothing out there. What would
mm-hmm.
you say to that person?
Well, first of all, we've got some amazing help and support and services in the UK, and someone will listen 100%. I'll say that one, I'll speak off the cuff 100%. Someone will listen to you, someone will understand, and someone will guide you, and someone will be there as you're going through whatever that is. What we don't want is people to sit alone feeling scared, feeling
Yeah,
as though they're worthless, because you know what, you're not worthless. You're worth so much more than being worthless. So,
yeah,
empower yourself to make that decision, to speak to someone, to speak to a friend that you trust that may be able to get a contact for you. Say, it's don't sit alone. Don't sit alone, please. It's no need. There's so many people out there are waiting to help and support you.
I love you so.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I'm sure it's going to help so many people.
No, it's been a pleasure. It's a pleasure,
Okay.
Louise. And,
Oh.
thank you for inviting me on.
Okay, stay on the line. We'll have a little natter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching Auntie Lou's Hour. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe.